Welcome into WTOL Film Room, our first podcast, and I had to go with Greg Dempsey as our very first guest as we start this new venture, because I don't want to say it, but you've been around maybe the longest of most people. You've been around for a little while.
I'm probably in the top 5. There's a few guys.
There's a few. Bill Inselman has been around longer. Oh, now I start thinking about
Kenny James.
Yeah, Kenny James has certainly been around a little bit longer, but 23 years at Central Catholic now. Can you believe that number?
No, I mean, it's I remember I used to be the young guy when he got hired. How did he get that job? And now you get asked questions, how much longer are you going to do this and that? And I'm like, I'm only 50 for crying out loud. I mean, it's been really, really fast. Days are long, years are fast.
When you talk about how you got hired, you've told me this story, and I don't know how much you're willing to share.
Oh, sure.
Please do. When you were first hired, you were passed over for a job in the City League, I believe, and then you were able to get the Central Catholic job, and the rest is history. Can you tell me that when you got hired, what that was like?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was up for another job in town, was offered the position. It ended up it wasn't the right fit for either of us.
Yeah.
And ended up turning that one down. And a month later, Central Catholics, a longtime coach, great friend of mine, Tom Santoro, resigned. He decided he wanted to coach, but he didn't want to be a head coach anymore. And I went after it, and I was told even going in, you're going to get an interview. Your goal should be make round 2. That'd be pretty impressive. But, they're in a rebuild mode, and, first-time head coach definitely wasn't on their list. And I made it to round 2. I mean, it was I felt pretty good the first time around, and we ended up going to round 2 of the interviews, and the person that was offered the job took about a week to decide, and even at one point accepted the job and on a Friday, and called back Monday and changed their mind. Just once again, not a right fit for them. And I had a message in my mailbox, if it told you how long ago it was, and I'd been waiting for 8 days, and I go to my mailbox and I call Bill X ASAP, and I called him and I sped over, and that was about 3 o'clock. I was teaching at Start High School back then, and I was head coach by 3:30, and and that's just it's better to be lucky than good sometimes.
And you've been really good. Let's start. I want to start this whole thing. We'll start about your team right now, and then we'll start looking in the past a little bit. You guys opened up Friday at St. Ed's, and you guys were right there against the defending Division I state champs. Walk me through what I think the cliche is what you learn in week 1, but what was week 1 like for you, and having to go? You don't shy away from that kind of thing, do you?
No, I mean, you look at it this way. Week 1, and I've been there where you opened up with so many people. Like, what are they doing playing them? And pretty much people know we're going to win by many points. And I've been through that a couple times, and about 5 years ago I started saying we got to start boosting this up, because when you're playing a non-league schedule that's not challenging, you don't know what your issues are.
Yeah. And
opening up tough, what your issues are week 1, and there can be a talent discrepancy where you're the lesser of the two teams. But last year we did it for the first time, and we were tied at half, just like this year.
Yeah.
Wore down in the second half. So the big thing as soon as the season ends is everything we do is going to be so we can beat Eds and not wear down in the second half. And we changed many things to sometimes the kids even questioning it themselves. And that was one thing that happened Saturday, or even Friday night after the game. Coach, you and the other coaches were right. We didn't wear down. It makes sense now. We didn't win the game, but we gave ourselves a chance to win it in the fourth. And, you're right there with a team like that. I mean, obviously I was proud of our effort. I'm not happy we lost. Either our kids. That's the great thing. I mean, moral victories there's a column for that.
I know you're not a moral victory kind of guy. You told me in the preseason that Braden Alls would be playing some offense. Did you envision him doing what he did he's caught 3 touchdown passes in his over there on offense? He
was 3 for 3, instant offense, just add water. I mean, it's Braden was a guy. We had a lot of injuries at our safety position.
Yeah.
Like, we were very thin, and we really wanted to use him last year, and that temptation was there. But we suffered some 2-a-day injuries and some very early season injuries where we were down to the bare bones there. So we had to, we had other guys that were capable, so we went that route. We always knew he could be explosive on offense, and boy, the other night, we had some plays lined up, and we had situations. We knew if we got inside the red zone, we were really going to go to him. They go man coverage. We thought he matched up and could really take advantage of some matchups there, and that's really what happened. There was about 3 or 4 plays we really worked on, and he took advantage of the matchup, and so did Taiwan and everybody else.
And now that temptation will grow and want to throw him out there even more on offense. Go back to the scheduling thing a little bit. How tough is it to schedule when you're Central Catholic?
I think it's challenging. In some ways you want it to be also. I mean, we're looking for a certain type of game. You're worried about distance. I think it's good to play an out-of-town team. Even finding some to do that. Yeah. We've had success scheduling some out-of-town teams, and then some that you would be surprised won't play us. And it's just, you want to make sure you fill the schedule, and then you have to balance the home and aways to get, for budgetary reasons, the athletic director, things like that. So it can get quite difficult. I have some schools out there who still want to play. I mean, I've called up, I've offered a home and home to Massillon. I think that'd be a great experience and a great thing.
Yeah, that'd be incredible.
There's some other places I want to see. At stadiums I want to take our kids to and play some of these storied programs, because I definitely think we're in that position of being a tradition-rich program. And, and coming up with our league change, there's some teams local area in the track that are still interested in playing us too for rivalry's sake and cycle's sake. And we've had great relationships with many of the schools. So it's not going to be as cumbersome maybe coming up as we're used to, but trying to find that mix of what you got coming down the pipe and what's best for that team also.
You talked about the new league a little bit. You brought it up. You and I have had some conversations about it. There's no secret. It's been frustrating to some. Some are excited about it. Where do you kind of stand on where everything went down, if you can be candid?
Oh, I don't know how candid I can be. I can tell you the athletic directors and coaches have some pretty good relationships in our league. Everybody's competitors, and you have things pop up. I worry about the future of Northwest Ohio football. Just because this is happening the way it is doesn't mean that's the way it's going to look in 5 years. People split apart for many reasons. It can be because we want a better chance to win. Well, now you form new leagues, and other people are going to want that better chance to win. And where does this end? And I'm worried about Northwest Ohio football. We have a league home for football. I'm more worried about other sports. Football, when you're joining a new league, even if it's up in Michigan, there's a lot of excitement for me as the football coach. And then there's some things, we got to work through some hoops on some other things in other sports that I'm concerned about. But in terms of football, I'm very excited to play Detroit CC, Brother Rice, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, a chance to play in Ford Field if you make it that far at the end. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm very excited about, but I am worried about football in Northwest Ohio 5-10 years down the road. What happens if you have a couple schools over here that there's not enough for a league for them. You got a couple schools over here, and the sizes don't match up. So I just hope I look that far down the road, because that's my career, and I even look further that far down the road because this sport in this area has been phenomenal for me. And yes, you want to take care of yourself and have success and whatnot, but if there's no solid play for everybody in Northwest Ohio, that becomes a concern for everybody.
You also took on the athletic director role a couple years ago. I think it takes, you have to be a little crazy to want to add all that onto your plate. But why did you want to take that on, and what has that been like?
I was the interim president the year before.
Exactly.
I hired myself. And I think it was at the school at that time that was the best fit.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. It's long hours. I also have an assistant, Mike Pageant, that makes it possible. He helps me.
Can you give Padge some love?
That's what I just said.
We got to give Padge some love. How long has he been doing this now?
Oh man, he taught me. I mean, he's a stalwart at Central Catholic High School.
Love that guy.
And he he helps a lot in the fall, and we put a lot of time in. But it's great being around athletics. It's great being around kids. I get to watch, tonight I was at a soccer game. Tomorrow night I'll be at a boys soccer game. Tonight was a girls, a volleyball. I mean, I get to see a lot of things that when I was doing other positions in school, I didn't get to watch as much sports as I wished I'd like to watch.
How do you balance all that? I mean, you've got a family, you're coaching football, and then you're trying to do all that. How do you balance all of that?
My wife's a saint.
She has to be.
My kids are. I had the best coach's wife in the world. I guarantee it. We just hope she doesn't wisen up, And the kids, the good thing is my kids don't know anything different.
Right.
So
Sure.
that's
Sure.
and they're excited about it. If you ask them about not doing it, they couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
So it's just your family and the people at Central Catholic making it possible too. Because I hate to tell people, the football is just as much a full-time job as the other, and getting that balance, like you said. And the last thing I'm going to shortchange is my family.
Yeah. How did you build this thing up at Central Catholic? Because when you took over 23 years ago, it wasn't where it is now. How did you begin to build this thing back in the beginning?
The first thing I would say is, I thought I always had a good vision of what I wanted it to become. Yeah. And I don't even think it's exceeded that, quite honestly, in terms of the success and the things we've got to experience. But there's no doubt I've been surrounded by great people. No. There's no way it isn't me. We'd be in trouble if it was just me. We've probably recycled flipped the staff 3 to 4 times where there's been a new core over 23 years. And the loyalty, buy-in, and expertise of those guys and the way they are with the kids, it doesn't happen without them. And then you have a school that supports it. It's important, and they don't apologize for that. And it's just it's like making a good pot of chili. All the ingredients have just been, are you going to have the same ingredients? If they're not balanced right, it's not going to be very good. We've had a great mix of ingredients and people just wanting it to continue.
Are you just brag for a second? I know you won't. I know you don't want to do this, but are you just better at X's and O's than everybody else? Do you put more time in? Is it just getting kids? Why is Central Catholic every single year better than everybody else? You can brag. It's okay, Debs. Nobody. Just between you and me.
You, me, and everybody watching, huh? I think it's a drive, an expectation, a standard. I'm not the smartest X's and O guy. That's been the number one thing I looked at Friday is where did I mess up? Everybody's talking about some onside kick. Yeah. That's the least of our worries, quite honestly. Yeah. I think there's I think our kids, if you asked our kids, we coach kids hard. There's high level expectation, high standards. They know we care about them. Yeah. I think that's a big thing. And they know there's a trust. What's trust? Trust is, behavior over time. Repeated, and the kids have trusted us. We've trusted them. I don't have a good answer. This is coach talk right now because I don't want to go there. We've done really well. I think we've had a good vision, a good plan, and we've executed it. Have we messed up at times? Yes. Everybody's going to say you have the best players. Okay, well I've seen a lot of talented teams not win.
Right. But there's other teams that could. There's other schools that could also get good players. Oh. You're not the only private school in town. No. You're the one that has been able to sustain this for the longest amount of time, though.
Well, I think there's a drive to us over there, and especially with a big part of our staff. It's been pretty well stuck together for a number of years right now. We're in a pretty good cycle staff-wise, and the alignment amongst us is phenomenal. Our staff's like a family, and when you have that going, it permeates to the kids. And there's talent there, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But the work, people are saying, oh, you got it so easy. I'll trade with. Go ahead. Give it a try. I can tell you this much. There is nothing easy about being successful at anything. I think you'd attest to that.
Right.
The only thing that's easy is if you inherit something. And then usually it's not gonna last too long. We work really hard. There's no doubt about it. We're 7 days a week. We're all the time, off season 4 days a week, and you can walk into our weight room and building anytime. There's going to be anywhere from 7 to 10 coaches there. It's just a commitment to people, and and that attracts other people. If you're a kid that's trying to choose, a parent or a child choosing where you want to go and what are your goals, what fits it. Like you say, I'll brag a little bit. The proof's in the pudding. This is what we've done for 23 years. We don't have to tell you imagine what could happen. This is what has happened. Please come, you want to be a part of it, come on in, as long as you want to do it the way we want to do it and commit to it. And there's a lot of other good programs in the area. I don't want to, but we've obviously have had the most success over time.
Sure. When you talk about over time, you've had so many great players. I always tell people the best player that I've covered, I think, is Dane Sonsenbacher, and I've been doing. This is my 14th year at WTOL, and then I was across the street for a couple years as well. I I think Dane Sanzenbacher was the best player that I ever saw. Was he the best player that you've coached?
It's kind of different. You can get yourself in trouble. With these
Yeah,
conversations.
I know you can.
The big thing people want to do, they want me to, they want this. They want to know what are the top 10 games you've ever been a part of?
Yeah.
What are the top 10 plays you've ever seen? And then who are the best players by position? There have been some arguments in the coach's office because there's a lot of former players. And each one's kind of different. I mean, Dane Sanzenbacher's special. I wouldn't call him an overachiever. The kid was so special. He played in the NFL. He was gifted. The drive he had was amazing.
Right.
Just amazing. And you're going to bring tears to my eyes putting film up like this. He had some specialness to him that you couldn't bottle. I mean, watch the video for a minute. We can just sit and admire. There's a guy that needed to step up every time he stepped up. Both sides of the ball, special teams, you name it. He was impacting all three. He was a leader. He was a hard worker and a great person and a pretty dang humble person. Yeah. Awesome.
There's been so many good ones that have come through. Do you have a list of some of them, or are you gonna?
I couldn't give you a list. I can tell you special things about him. I mean, Deshaun Kaiser, what an amazing talent.
Right.
I mean, I don't care what anybody says. There's 32 NFL starting quarterbacks. He was one of them at one time. Yeah. And he was a pleasure to coach. You talk about a guy that was, I remember beating Findlay one night on a rainy night down the road. They'd beaten, it was 2012, because in 11 they beat us bad down in Findlay his sophomore year. And we rushed for 500 yards that night. And he's given the signal. We run a play and gouge up some yards, and he's giving me a signal to run it again. He's not saying Chuck. I mean, he was that type of guy. He was a smart football player, but he never put anything on himself ahead of winning the game. And that was fun. And one of the nicest people you ever met. I mean, I said that guy took me to the NFL draft and put me in the green room with him. I mean, that's how much, how nice of a person he is and responsive. Michael Warren, just a special. Yeah. I've never seen anybody run a football like him. Yeah. Just amazing. And one of the, talk about him, one of the hardest practice players you've ever seen. And get mad that you wouldn't play him on defense enough. I mean, we were down in Findlay in 2014, and we were down 14-0 quick, and he's put me on 2 picks and flips the game, and you end up winning. I mean, so I've seen, Keith Tobridge, an underrated one we saw. In the state title run in 12, he started playing D-line. He was an NFL tight end, but he played both ways that whole drive. A special. Actually, he's getting married here coming up in the very near future.
I think I saw that on Facebook recently.
But I'm going to forget people because there are
James Hudson.
Yeah, he's
still,
okay.
He's still in the NFL. He's doing okay.
One of the most, another just great soft-spoken kid. Yeah. Great, all these kids, too, had great parents that stayed on them. And they never, as talented, everybody's dog's parents all the time. Right. We've just talked about some of the most talented people in history that we put, and their parents were
funny how that works.
They were great. So, one loud parent doesn't mean every parent's bad, and it's nice to get to tell stories like that. We could probably do a podcast on just great players, not only at our place, but ones we've seen in the entry and have played against.
I was going to that's actually literally my next thing is, who are some of the ones that you faced? I mean, you faced Chris Wormley in all those battles, and Storm Norton against Whitmer. Who are some of the ones that you remember when you were game planning? You're like, okay, we can't let this dude get to us, or we have to game plan around somebody.
Joe Burrow.
That works.
Pull out a right bower there from the start. We back in 01, we played against Brady Quinn. Oh yeah. Dublin Kaufman. That was his week of 9/11. And the game got postponed on Friday and rescheduled to Saturday. Wow. And that gave him an extra day to prepare to score about, I think we lost 31-7. Wow. They had some dudes. They were a Final Four team that year. He was something. Some of the Whitmer teams in 12 had multiple great players. You mentioned those guys. You remember Jody Webb. You remember the Holly quarterback was probably one of the most underrated guys you've ever seen. You talk about putting something on your back and going with it. And there were a lot of great players on that team, but man, that guy was something.
Cheatham Norrells at St. John's. When you had to play against him, Cheatham was a good heck of a player.
St. John's had some great players.
St. John's had some really good ones.
They had the Kern kid who was an underrated player. They had was it Nate White? He was a running back slot kid that was a heck of a player. And then Rollback came along and joined them. And there were a lot of great linemen over there too. Ben Burkett was the
Jack
one that
Miller.
went on? Jack Miller.
Yeah. Matt Miller.
The Jack Mewhort wasn't too bad.
Jack Mewhort was all right. He carved out a pretty good career for himself.
No, I mean, so you've seen, and we're forgetting people.
Oh, for sure.
I feel horrible. I apologize to all you who we are forgetting.
I can't wait for people to blow up my phone. How did you not mention blah? Like, it's it's hard when you get in this.
And then some of the guys we've seen across the, when you get into those state games and you're seeing people, you see some matchups that you're like, I mean, we played against Sauce Gardner back in Detroit, Martin Luther King back
First
in
round pick
2007. I mean, he was about 140 pounds soaking wet, and look what he turned into. So it's just, I haven't told that to kids on the team. We played against him. I'm like, yeah, he was the corner. Yeah. And so it's been a heck of an experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If I had these questions ahead of time, we'd have a 2-hour podcast going here. I'll tell you that.
All right, we'll have to have part 2. We're going to bring you back. You talked about the game against Joe Burrow. It's the best football game, best game I've ever covered. I think at any level. I mean, the Michigan fan in me was okay with Michigan Ohio State last year. That was a pretty good game I covered too. But high school. I mean, there's nothing at the high school level I think that could ever beat the game that you guys played against them in the shoe. We're gonna roll some highlights of it.
Oh.
What do you remember about that night and how crazy that night was?
Because you were in the shoe was the first thing, so that changed everything that year. We had played at Massillon twice before that, and this was literally the first game of that weekend.
Yeah. That was a Thursday night.
I remember talking to the head coach at Akron St. V, who they beat in the Final Four. He goes, Coach, they got these receivers. They had a lot of guys. They had a lot of college players on their offense. Yeah. They really put all their stock. They're going to outscore people. And if I had Joe Burrow, I would too.
Sure.
I remember calling, you got to shut down their quarterback, and that's easier said than done. And boy, did it live up to it. I remember the first, it was just crazy. Every call mattered. Yeah. Every call mattered. Every execution of play mattered. The exhaustion, both teams, that was a heavyweight fight. The fourth down, the last drive is still one of the most memorable things I've been a part of. We were converting 3 4th downs, and
I love that moment there, the hug there. It was so. I remember that father and son getting the hug at the end of that game. That was such a cool. There were so many little things about that night, though, that like the way that everything went. I mean, it went back and forth. You had that feeling the last team with the ball was probably going to win. It was just there were so many wild things about. There was so much hype that week about you guys having to face Joe Burrow. Yeah. I specifically remember going out and asking you guys about it, and you guys were like, "Yeah, no, like, well, we have to face Joe Burrow. It's all good." And your players said all the right things at the time, and maybe they were a little naive to what was going on.
And you realize he does wear a cape.
Yes.
And another thing about that night is, you talk about great players. Maybe the most underrated player ever coached, Marcus Winters.
Marcus Winters, yeah.
He
went on to have a great career in college as well.
Yeah, I mean,
but people don't. It's not a Division I guy, so he flies a little under the radar. He had a great college career.
He was a wide receiver the year before that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Catching passes from Deshaun Kaiser.
Yeah, and then he just
now you're going to take us to state title. I mean, and did it. He's a cool cucumber there. Him, and it was fun to follow him in college, like you said.
Have you? I think I know for a fact you've at least entertained it. Have you thought about coaching in college? Have you thought about what it would be like to coach at that level? Whether it's a position or whatever, you've accomplished like everything you can accomplish at the high school level. Has it crossed your mind? I know you've at least entertained it.
You'd be a liar if you say it didn't cross your mind ever in your career. Sure. I would say much younger. I would say that was the plan. You're gonna get a head coaching job. You're gonna make connections. You're gonna flip Central Catholic, get it going the right direction. And then you know what happens. You fall in love, get married, start having a family, and a lot of those things are a lot more important because I'm still getting to do what I love. Yeah. I don't think you look to leave unless you're unhappy. Yeah. So I've always been happy. So I've never really, you have conversations with people over the years because you do meet a lot of people, and that's funny when you have people talk about how many people have come through your office and you've spoken to and and you call them up and they answer, and that happens all over places. But it was a there were a couple times people have reached out, and it just never was really the right thing for me and my family at the time. And like I said, when you're not, I've never sent a resume into anybody.
Wow.
I mean, never once. So when you're happy and things are going well, there's a quality of life that's a big part of somebody's paycheck that you don't see. And the next thing is, I graduated from Central in 1990, and I've always wanted my kids to go to Central Catholic High School and graduate from there. And I'm in the middle of getting to experience that right now, so it's a lot of fun. And but early on maybe Jordan, but right now I'm just. Heck, you have to worry about what if they don't. Central might want me not to be there. You know what I mean? So you never say never. But
if Kevin Parkins comes tomorrow, and Parkins is like, "Listen, Demps, we're gonna go a different direction. We're gonna have to get his head checked." And I say that because I love Parkins and I've known him since we were in high school. So
Panthers.
We are. We're both Maumee Panthers. So if Parkins does that tomorrow, I'm getting his head checked.
And that's the thing. You're working at your alma mater.
Yeah.
With great people, with great kids, and it is. I'm not doing out there chasing the next thing. I'm trying to chase the next ring. It's been my youngest son reminded me it's been about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, you're on that. You were 2005, 12, and then 14.
Yeah. Lost in 15.
And you were there in 15 and lost.
Been the Final Four 3 or 4 times since then, I think.
Yeah, is it 6 total Final Fours? I think it's 6 total Final Fours.
I can tell you how many state titles. Other than that, I can't tell you.
Do you ever wear you have the rings?
I do. They're at home.
You ever wear them?
Not really.
No? Okay.
I mean, they're there, and I don't. I appreciate them, and I don't take them lightly at all. I'm scared to take them out and lose one or something, And it's everybody says it's all about getting the ring, And they're all different. They're all beautiful. Each one has a little bit of different character to it, and each one has a little different story to it. One was supposed to happen, one wasn't, and the other one was just complete. The first one was we were picked to finish 4th in the league.
I remember 2005. It was the coldest night of my life, I think. It was freezing that night in Massillon. And right before halftime, you guys ran the hook and ladder. I remember, for some reason, that play sticks out to me. Among all of them that I've seen all these years, whatever. For some reason, that play in 2005, I will never forget, because I'm like, Dempsey's a little bit nuts. I love it. Like that was an unbelievable. Whose call was that?
That was Mike Donnelly's. I didn't make that call. I was on the headsets with him, but Mike Donnelly was the OC that year. He called a great game that night because that was a tough team to run the ball against.
Yeah.
Manufactured some matchups for Dane, and Kevin Jansen got on the ball. Had just enough of a running game. Had a fake punt in that game where we ended up scoring the game winner. Dane caught that one. Is crazy.
I remember there was literally ice on the field.
Yeah, it wasn't field turf. It was a carpet with ice on it.
It was literally it was the most bizarre thing. Is that one of those plays or the hook and ladder play that that was the end of a half. It's not like it was the end of the game where if you don't score it's over, whatever. At the end of the half, if the pitch goes wrong or something like that, and they take it back the other way, are you not letting Mike Donnelly come back in or?
Oh no! Hey, you live with that. You
don't think about the negatives in that situation?
Well, we had a moment the other night against Ed's opening drive. We're 4th and 1 on our own 29, and I went for it. And the coach, my coaches couldn't. That was the thing. We thought they were just trying to draw them off. And you got to play to win sometimes. Yeah. And Mike did that. Then he came out. It gave us a lot of momentum heading into halftime. And then we came out in the start of the second half, and we got Dane in a one-on-one and hit him on a sprint out pass on a little out and up, and that poor kid still turned in circles. It was trying to guard him, and it was unfair. And that just really capitalized things. And the rest they scored. Then we held them, covered an onside kick at the end to ice it, and still had to punt to them.
I think it was the same playoff run. I believe it was the same playoff run game at Fremont Ross against Avon Lake, where Dane intercepts a pass down near his own goal line,
yeah.
like one-handed on the sideline, and takes it back the other way.
Juggled it around his hips as he was running.
What a freak.
I remember
That was
saying,
unreal.
and we were in control at that point.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to the coaches in the box, I said, he's not going to house this. And one of them goes, he already is. I mean, it was he put on a show that night. That was a fun game because Avon Lake was defending state champs.
Yeah.
And they beating them kind of, I think, was the first moment of getting our school recognized statewide,
Sure.
probably.
Yeah.
They had 100 guys or something, and their kids were so classy after the game. I remember them wishing us go win it, and it was a hard-fought game. But Dane had a pretty big night, as some other guys did, but he made 3 or 4 great plays in that game.
All right, last thing I'm going to ask you. You've been doing this a little while. You've watched the game of football kind of evolve. How have you evolved with the game? Do you look at analytics? And how have you kind of changed as a coach over these last 23 years? I see the smirk on your face.
Caught
already.
37 passes the other night.
That
was a year one time.
Right. You would think when you had like Deshaun, you'd be chucking it around 40 times a night.
Yeah.
But you didn't even really do it with him.
I will tell you, the people that are best at getting me to, because what you can get trapped at, and this might be braggadocious.
Okay, go ahead, please.
You always trying to be safe because you know you can win or something, and you don't expand your mind enough.
Yeah.
And I have some young coaches on my staff that really push me in that direction, whether it's tempo, whether it's analytics, whether it's trickery, whether it's just the RPO game right now. That's one of the big hot ones on the X. We're much more of a blitz team in multiple defense than we ever would when I called defense in 05. I called offense in 2012 and 14 games. So I've been on both sides of it, and the game of defense has changed and trying to keep up with it. But having coaches like Ryan Brown, Chad Hunnenbrinker, and Josh Linke, who just went on, having Eric Page on staff. Those guys really push you. They're the ones out, they're young. They don't know any better. And you know what? They're right sometimes. And that's what you got to try to, and I'm still trying to evolve in that way to stay up with the game. If you don't stay ahead of it, it's going to catch you from behind, and that's going to hurt. And we're evolving. I don't know if I evolve fast enough to please my guys, but that is the biggest help, is the people around you getting you to break down your walls a little bit and try some new things and keep learning the game. That's what I tell any young coach. You mentioned all those accolades. I study the game of football year round, and it's a lot of work because something new's coming along all the time.
We just went 30 minutes. I feel like I could go another 2 more hours with you. I appreciate you coming in. Good luck the rest of the way. Appreciate you doing the first one here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. And, this will be fun to watch as the season progresses.
Absolutely. All right, that's our first WTOL Film Room. We'll be back here every week with a brand new podcast.